Welcome to my channel. My name is Ria, and in this video we are going to talk about the new moon that is happening on 23rd December 2022. So for this video I'm going to talk about Western astrology first, and then we will get into Vedic astrology. So let's get started. Now, a new moon in astrology is a point where new energy comes in. New energy seeds itself and we work on that energy for the next 28 days or so. So essentially it's the seeding point of an energy. It's a new beginning, energetically speaking, right? And this new beginning in Western astrology is happening in the sign of Capricorn right here. You can see this on the chart. It is in the sign of Capricorn. A new moon is when the sun and the moon conjunct, they meet up, right? And this is Capricorn. So it's at about 1 degree of Capricorn, this new moon. And since it is in the sign of Capricorn, Capricornian themes will be highlighted, right? Capricorn is the sign that is associated with hard work, with decisions, with discipline, with dedication, with persistence, with planning, right? It's planning for the long run. That's Capricorn. So in many ways in our personal lives, these themes might show up, right? We might be required to continue the hard work that we've already been putting in. We might be required to be more dedicated. We might be required to plan and get organized and develop systems in our lives with a long-term vision, with a long-term goal, right? So those are the general themes that can come up in our personal lives. Now, collectively on a global level, Capricorn rules the highest of the high, right? So it's the authorities, it's the governments, it's the big businesses. That's Capricorn. So these themes can be highlighted on a global collective level. Now, let's not forget that yes, we do have this new moon in Capricorn, but we have so much more energy as well. We have Venus. Venus is right here in Capricorn. We have Mercury. Mercury is right here in Capricorn. So Capricorn energy is really highlighted a lot about taking decisions, a lot about planning, a lot about getting to work, a lot about persevering, right? That's Capricorn. And we will talk about Venus and Mercury in just a moment once I'm done with the aspects that this moon is making. So now I'm going to talk about the aspects, and the most important aspect this moon is making is a square to Jupiter, right? It's making a 90-degree angle to Jupiter. This is Jupiter, 0 degrees of Aries, and the moon's at 1 degree of Capricorn. Now, Jupiter has just entered the sign of Aries again. If you recall, in the month of May, Jupiter did enter the sign of Aries. I believe it was 10th of May. And let's talk about Jupiter a little bit, and then I will talk about how this relates to this new moon. So Jupiter enters a particular sign after 12 years, right? And in the month of May, Jupiter entered the sign of Aries, May 2022. But then it retrograded back into Pisces. And now again, it's re-entered the sign of Aries, and it is not going back to Pisces. And Jupiter in Aries is a really special placement simply because Aries is the beginning of the zodiac, right? So it enters Aries every 12 years. And when it enters Aries, we begin a 12-year cycle. So we might have got glimpses of this cycle back in the month of May. But if you recall, back then Mercury was also retrograde. So we might have got glimpses, but things were quite slow back then. But now Jupiter has entered the sign of Aries and Mercury is not retrograde, not yet anyway. And what this means is that a lot of new energy for new beginnings, for new things, for this new 12-year cycle, right? And it's a long cycle. 12 years is a long time. So we have this Jupiterian energy that's bringing in this new cycle, this new beginning in a big way. So that's Jupiter in Aries, and it is squaring the moon, right? A square in astrology represents change, right? A square asks us, hey, are you going to change, right? And until we change, until we grow, until we evolve, we can feel pressured, right? So it's this point of extreme pressure, extreme friction that says, okay, you need to change so that you can become better. That's what a square asks, to change. And Jupiter is squaring this new moon, and Jupiter is a magnifier. So in that sense, it's really magnifying this new energy, which is bringing in new beginnings, right? In a disciplined, dedicated manner, which requires us to plan, which requires us to think things through, maybe develop systems in our lives. So it's magnifying that energy. But let's not forget that this square, this 90-degree angle, is between cardinal signs. Capricorn is a cardinal sign, Aries is a cardinal sign. And in astrology, cardinal signs start things, right? They initiate. And Aries initiates in this impulsive manner, right? Aries is very impulsive energy. And it's about starting things, but the thing with Aries is we need to maybe take a step back, think things through a little, and then start. And Capricorn here is also a cardinal sign, starting things, but in a planned way, in a systematic way. Right? So a lot of energy about starting new things, about new beginnings in a way, which is magnified. And this new energy, this new beginning can also require us to maybe learn some lessons, right? It can also require us to change so that we can access some blessings, Jupiter, access some wisdom, access some knowledge, right? So that's what this square to Jupiter means. And let's not forget here that Jupiter is in a semi-square with Uranus, right? This is Uranus right here, and this is Jupiter. They're making a 45-degree angle. And again, Jupiter is at 0 degrees of Aries. So a lot of energy about new beginnings, new starts, initiatives, taking action, making things happen. And this can be quite sudden and it can be quite unexpected because Uranus is sudden, Uranus is unexpected, and Uranus is also change. So perhaps we might need to change something in order to take these new steps to initiate things. Right, so that's something that I just wanted to touch upon real quick. And now I'm going to talk about a few more things. So let's get into that. Let's start with Mars, right? Let's start with Mars. That's Mars. And Mars has been retrograde since about 30th of October 2022. You can see it's in red font. And retrograde means that from the Earth's perspective, it's appearing to move backwards. And Mars is retrograding in the sign of Gemini right now. And in our personal lives, this can bring up review, right? Reviewing something or taking a second look at something or a second take at something that we've already worked on in the past. And I've said this in my previous videos. Pay attention to where you've been putting in a lot of your energy since maybe the month of October into November, right? That's the area that Mars is asking you to look at again, whether that's a business, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a project or something else, a routine or something connected to health, right? Pay attention to where you've been putting in a lot of energy, and that's what's coming up with Mars retrograde. And if you know your charts, look for Gemini, which house, and that's what's coming up for review with Mars retrograde for you. But generally speaking, when Mars is retrograde, right, collectively we can feel this frustration. We can feel like things are not moving. We can feel slightly stuck. So those are the things to be mindful of with Mars retrograde. And why I bring this up is because we have a lot of energy right now that's saying take action, right? That's saying go. That's saying start new things. That's saying change, right? And then we have Mars retrograde that's saying slow down, think things through, right? So there's this contradiction in a way, and we must manage this contradiction. And the way to manage this contradiction is that put in the background work, right? Maybe what we need to do is plan what we can do right now instead of something that's very external, right? Think of all the steps we can take, think of all that we can do, and maybe not get so eager for the rewards or the end result, right? Just put in that work in a dedicated, systematic, planned manner. Capricorn. Actually, that's what Capricorn is, right? Behind the scenes. It's behind the scenes planning, behind the scenes work. And it's long term, day in, day out for years. So that's what we must do. And if we do that, if we say, okay, you know what, this is a project I want to start, but I'm feeling so stuck, I'm feeling so frustrated, I feel like I'm putting in so much work, but the external validation, the external result, the external outcome is just not there, then what we can say is that, okay, it might not be there now, but it will come when Mars gets out of retrograde. Jan, it will get out of retrograde. But till then, what I can do is the background work. I can plan, I can keep going, I can do this in a systematic manner. So that's what we can do. And Jupiter here is magnifying that energy. So a lot about being planned, a lot about continuing the hard work, right? And not letting this Mars retrograde get us down, make us feel like, no, nothing's going to happen, no, things are not moving. They actually are, right? We have so much Capricorn. Capricorn is the sign that gets to the top. It's the highest of the high. It's the mountain. It's the peak. And how does Capricorn get to the top? One step at a time, slowly, persistently, dedicatedly, right? It's like that story where the slow and steady wins the race. So we must be slow and steady, one step at a time, and eventually we will reach the peak of the mountain, right? And with Jupiter in Aries, we might have this tendency of maybe being a little impulsive. So if we rein that in, and it is easy for us to rein that in simply because there is so much Capricorn. Capricorn thinks things through. So if you're feeling impulsive, it can happen, right? If you're feeling impulsive, then slow it down, right? Plan. Take a step back. And the last moon we had, the full moon was in Gemini. And Gemini is a very restless and stimulating energy. So back then we might have felt like there's so much going on, right? But now we have this balancing energy that likes to put an order to things, that likes to bring a system to things. So it's good to focus on that, building systems. Now, we've spoken about Mars. Let's move on to the next planet. Let's talk about Mercury, right? Mercury here is making a few aspects on this moon, and what it's doing is, okay, one more thing about Mars, and then we'll talk about Mercury. So Mars here has been in a square to Neptune for a long time, few weeks, right? Not exact, but it has been in that position of making a 90-degree angle with Neptune. Neptune right here is the planet that can confuse us, right? It's a very spiritual planet, yes, but it has this very confusing energy. And Mars is action. It's how we do things. It's moving forward. So for the past few weeks, we might have felt this confusion, right? What are the steps ahead? But now, if you look at the chart, Mars has moved away from its square to Neptune. It's moved away. And what that means is that things are more clear now than they were, say, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. So that's just something I wanted to touch upon. Now, coming back to Mercury and Neptune, yeah, they are making a positive aspect. So in connection with Mars and Neptune, right, we might have been confused, we might have been a little confused and not being able to see things clearly over the past few weeks. But now Mercury, which is the planet of our logical mind, is making a positive aspect with Neptune, the planet of confusion. And what this can mean is more clarity, right? More clarity. And also Neptune and Mercury together, it's a great energy for things like creative writing, poetry, that sort of thing. So that's something. And we have Saturn here in a semi-sextile with Mercury as well. And what this means is that maybe finally we are seeing things a little more clearly, and maybe finally we're able to decide some things, right? Because Mercury and Saturn can lead to decisions. So that's Mercury. And one more thing with Mercury is that it is right now going over the area that it will retrograde over, right? Mercury here will retrograde in the month of December, 29th December, right? And retrograde is, like I just mentioned, from the Earth's perspective, the planet appears to move backwards. So Mercury is going to go retrograde on 29th December between 8 and 24 degrees of Capricorn. So it is in that zone right now. So be mindful, whatever you're thinking right now, those things might come up for review when Mercury goes retrograde towards the end of the month. So that's Mercury. Now moving on to Venus. Let's talk about Venus. Now, Venus is in Capricorn, right? Venus actually does not really like to be in Capricorn. And Capricorn here is a Saturn-ruled energy, right? It's very disciplined, it's very structured, it's very organized. And Venus is what? Love. It's pleasure, it's luxury. So you can see why Venus may not want to be in Capricorn, right? Luxury, pleasure, and here we have this austere, disciplined sign of Capricorn. So there's a contradiction there. Although in Vedic astrology, Venus and Saturn really get along. So that's something to think about. But usually Venus does not like to be in Capricorn. But Venus in Capricorn is great for certain things, right? It's great for serious, disciplined relationships. It's great for making commitments. So that's what Venus in Capricorn can help us do. It can help us decide about the relationships. It can help us commit. It can help us take decisions. It can help us get serious. It can help us not just decide about relationships and, things associated with our romantic life, but it can also help us decide things about maybe a financial situation, because Venus is finances as well. It can also help us maybe streamline things connected to our own self-worth, right? Venus is self-worth as well. So things can start becoming serious. Things can start becoming final, right? We can start deciding things on this new moon. So that's Venus. And Venus here is making a few aspects. Let's talk about that. It is trining Uranus, right? On this moon, it is trining Uranus. So Uranus is sudden, Uranus is unexpected, it's change. So change can come about to Venus things quite suddenly, and this change might lead to certain decisions, commitments, changes, right? Capricorn. And there was one more thing with Venus. Venus on 2nd of January. Let's see that. Venus, one sec. Okay, yeah. Venus here will meet up with Pluto on 2nd of January, right? So you can see it's moving towards Pluto. And what is Pluto? Pluto is total transformation. Pluto is catharsis. Pluto is release. So on this moon, we are going through a certain change or epiphanies or insights connected to relationships or projects or finances or self-worth, with the mindset or the outlook of maybe making commitments or deciding things, and we are building up to this transformation that might take place to our projects and relationships and self-worth rather by 2nd of January when Venus meets up with Pluto. So that's what I wanted to touch upon regarding Venus. And I've covered Mars, Mercury, Venus, and we've talked about Jupiter. We've talked a little bit about Neptune. We've talked about let's talk about Saturn a little bit. And then we will try to wrap this up and move on to Vedic astrology. So Saturn here has been in a square with Uranus, right? I speak about this in every video, the Saturn-Uranus square of 2021 and 2022. And if you don't know this energy, this is a rare energy. It's happening after almost 20 years. It's already happened actually. 2021, it was very intense. Feb, June, and December. And this year, October into November, it was very intense, 2022, right? And what is this energy? Let's just go over it real quick. Saturn here is the planet of decisions and commitments, yes, but it's also the planet of restrictions and control and constriction, right? And limitations. And Uranus here is this energy of breaking free, of moving into the future. Saturn here is the traditional and Uranus here is the progressive. So it's this battle, you can say, the the pull of the past and the pull of the future. There's this battle between those, and this was very intense. And personally, this can manifest as this desire to break free, to step into new things, but something from the past holding us back, or feeling limited in some way and not being able to do that. So personally, those limitations or restrictions might be easing up slightly, right? You can see the square is it's a 6-degree orb now. It's very less intense now. So personally, we can feel a little more free to move into the new, to step into the future than we did, say, in the month of October. And collectively, what this square is doing is bringing up themes of science, tech, innovation, rebellion, humanity, peace. On one hand, right, Aquarius, innovation, I said that, I think. And on the other hand, it's bringing up things associated with finances, economies, currencies. And we've seen this back and forth, right, over the past few years. And now it's a little less than, say, a couple of months ago. And one more thing I want to touch upon is that we still have Uranus and the North Node pretty close, right? 3-degree orb. This is the North Node. This is also called Rahu, right? And Rahu in Vedic astrology is a magnifier. It is a very progressive, innovative energy, a lot like Uranus. And Uranus, we know, is change. It's sudden, it's unexpected. And together, what these can bring is immense change. It's a very, very progressive energy together, right? And they are in Taurus, and the North Node has been in Taurus. Rahu has been in Taurus since January of this year. So with both these influences in Taurus, themes of economy, currencies, raw materials, food resources, all these have been highlighted for the past few months, and they are continuing to be highlighted. But that square to Saturn with Uranus, that was so intense in October into November, that could have made us feel restricted and limited in some ways, is much less now. So that's, I think, that covers most of it. So to sum it up, I would say this new moon is bringing in new energy like any other new moon, asking us to focus on new starts, right? New starts that require decisions, that require commitment, that require more hard work, discipline, dedication, persistence, and working in a planned manner, right? Although we have this new energy, and Jupiter here is in Aries. On the last moon, it was in Pisces, and Jupiter in Aries is a new 12-year beginning, a lot about new starts. We still have Mars retrograde, right? Mars retrograde can make us feel frustrated. It can make us feel like, I'm putting in so much work, where's the result, right? But we must be patient. We must be patient, and we must do what Capricorn does. Work on the back end. Work slowly, persistently, dedicatedly over many years. That's Capricorn, to get the result and not run out of patience, right? Because there's tremendous energy for new starts right now with Jupiter entering the sign of Aries. We also have less confusion on this moon than we did, say, on the last moon. Things might have become a little more clear. What steps to take, how to move forward, right? What are the decisions? What are the commitments? That sort of thing. And that's Western astrology. Now I'm going to get into Vedic astrology, and what I'm going to do today is show you the chart. Right, so we're going to look at the Vedic astrology chart today, and let me pull that up real quick. So we have the Vedic astrology chart open, and this is a North Indian chart, right? I want to show you the South Indian chart as well. Actually, let me show you first, then we'll get into this. So this is the North Indian chart, right? And we have here, this is the South Indian chart. So the way it is structured is slightly different, but we will use the North Indian chart. So let me just set it up. Okay, there we go. And let's talk about this new moon in Vedic astrology. Right now in Vedic astrology, this new moon is happening in the sign of Sagittarius. You can see, okay, what just happened? This tip fell out. Strange. Okay, let's hope it works. Okay, it works. So this is the new moon, right? We have the Sun and the Moon, this is at about 7 degrees of Sagittarius. So one of the differences between Vedic astrology and Western astrology is where the energies are happening. Vedic astrology is about 24 degrees behind, right? About 24. So that puts it at about 7 degrees of Sagittarius. And more importantly, right, this new moon is happening in the nakshatra of Mula. Now there's a catch to this, right? So I'm going to pull that up and then I will tell you what the catch is. So while this moon is in the sign of Sagittarius, it is in the nakshatra of Mula. Right now, before we get into the details of this, nakshatras are smaller divisions of a sign, right? They have their own meaning, own interpretation, much like the sun sign. So consider them like a mini sign. Now, the thing here is that according to the equal nakshatra system, this moon is falling in the nakshatra of Mula. But what is interesting is that Vedic astrology also has something known as unequal nakshatra system. Right, we'll talk about why that came about another day. But in that system, we have this falling in the nakshatra of Purva Ashada. Right, so I'm going to talk about both these nakshatras and give emphasis to Purva Ashada because I feel, especially with my own chart, right, the unequal nakshatra system is a little more accurate for me at least. So Mula nakshatra is associated with the roots, right? It's the roots of something, and it's this energy of uprooting things, right? Uprooting yourself completely from the past. It's ruled by Ketu. Ketu is the south node, and Ketu represents the past. So Mula nakshatra is this energy of uprooting yourself, of something that you've been attached to, or something that, you know, has been there, and that's there. It's about uprooting yourself. It's about destruction as well. This nakshatra is associated by the goddess Nriti, right? Goddess Nriti is the goddess of destruction. Destruction for the sake of creation, a lot like Bharni, the other nakshatra. So the basic essence of this nakshatra is about destruction, is about uprooting things so that there's space for the new, so that you can step into the new, right? That's Mula. Now, Purva Ashada is different. Mula comes before Purva Ashada. So Purva Ashada comes after it, obviously. So in that sense, once you uproot yourself, right, Mula Nakshatra, what does one have to do? You have to set new roots, right? Once you uproot yourself, you have to set new roots. So Purva Ashada is about setting these new roots. It's about this new beginning. It's about figuring out how to get started again in some ways, right? And Purva Ashada is also called the nakshatra that is the undefeated one, the undefeated nakshatra. It's the former invincible one, right? Because Purva nakshatra is coupled with Uttarashada. Purva Ashada nakshatra, is coupled with Uttarashada. So they together form one, you can say couple. But Purva Ashada is the former invincible one, the undefeated one. So in that sense, it's a very Capricornian energy, right? You cannot defeat this nakshatra, and Capricorn has this energy of winning no matter what, right? So there's this energy as well of maybe approaching this new start, this new beginning with the mindset that, you know what, I'm going to do my best and I'm not going to let anything get me down, right? So this is also a very analytical nakshatra, a lot like Capricorn as well, right? It's not the Virgo kind of analysis, but it's more like the strategy of, okay, I want to get to the top of the mountain. What are the steps? What is the equipment? What do I need? What's the weather like? How will I get there? That kind of analysis, right? Purva Ashada is the same thing. So a lot about uprooting yourself from the past in Vedic astrology, Mula Nakshatra, and more about, I would say, figuring out the new starts, the new beginning, doing it in a planned way, doing it in an organized way, Capricorn, right? So doing it in a way where we feel like I'm doing my best and doing it with the energy of I'm going to win, right? Winning is a very, not in the wrong way, winning in the sense of I'm going to accomplish my goals, I'm going to fulfill my tasks, right? That kind of winning. So this is something I wanted to share with you today, show you the Vedic astrology chart, show you the nakshatras, and I did speak about both the nakshatras today, right? But I would say for this one, I would go with the unequal nakshatra system, more about the new beginnings. And in the equal nakshatra system, it falls in the nakshatra of Mula. Now, I think that sums it up from my side, and that's pretty much it. And interestingly, my sun is in Mula nakshatra in Vedic astrology, and it does not change even if I apply the unequal nakshatra system. So I have a Mula sun, I have a Revati moon, which is a Pisces moon, and I am a now my ascendant does change in Vedic astrology. According to the equal nakshatra system, I am a Purva Falguni Leo ascendant. But according to the unequal nakshatra system, I am an Uttar Falguni Leo ascendant. Right, my Leo ascendant's at about 25-26 degrees, varies a little depending on which system I use. So that's how it is. I definitely resonate more with Uttar Falguni Nakshatra than Purva Falguni Nakshatra. So I just thought I'd share that. I hope you enjoyed this, and now I will see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.